Hello, this is Daniel John Stein. Thank you for using my Revit textbook. We're going to begin our video series by looking at the Revit user interface. When you first open Revit, you see the Recent Files screen, as we see here on the screen. This gives you quick access to projects that you've been in recently across the top, and then below that, content or families that you've worked on recently. You can also click Open or New from these links, or from what's called the Application menu in the upper left. We can also go to New and Open. I'm going to press Escape to close that application menu. We'll go ahead and click the New link, and then we'll set the template type to Architectural Template, and then we'll select OK. Selecting the correct template before you start a Revit project is extremely important. There are lots of settings and content that's pre-set up for you, and making the wrong selection can make things difficult. Now that we're in the project environment, we will take a moment to look at the various parts of the user interface. We'll start by looking at the top and work our way down. So at the very top we have the application title bar. It tells us the name of the program we're in, and the project and the view name. To the far left, again, we have the application menu, which gives us various file access. So we have the ability to open, save, publish, and print files, and we also have the ability to control the options. If we click on options for a moment, one thing to note under graphics is if Use Hardware Acceleration is turned on, depending on your computer, you can have problems with Revit crashing. So if you do experience that problem, you'd want to come into this area and uncheck Hardware Acceleration, and then close the project and start it again. So back to the application menu for just a minute. In the upper corner here we have two icons. One shows recent documents that we've been in, and the other one shows open documents that we are currently in. So right now we're in a new project and it hasn't been saved yet, so it's just called Project 1. And then the view that we're in is a floor plan level 1 view. We'll learn more about that later. We're going to hit Escape to make that go away. To the right of the application menu is called the Quick Access Toolbar. You'll see in a few minutes how these tools are considered quick access and that they're always available no matter what the rest of the user interface looks like. You can see commands like open, save, undo, the distance and dimension commands, the text command, the ability to cut a section anytime is very handy. To the far right of the application title bar, we have the ability to type in a search term here, and then there's some Autodesk Cloud features available where you can sign in and access additional tools online depending on the type of account you have with Autodesk and your subscription status. And then we have the ability to look at the help system directly. If we click this little down arrow next to the question mark, we can go to About Autodesk Revit, and in the upper right here we can see what build we are using. Autodesk occasionally comes out with service packs, and that will be listed here underneath this build number. So you want to make sure you're using the latest and most current version of Autodesk Revit. You can download the service packs for free from Autodesk.com. Below the application title bar we have what's called the ribbon. It's made up of several tabs, so Structure tab, Systems tab, Insert tab, Annotate tab. These tabs reveal various sets of tools that are organized by panels. So this is the build panel, the circulation panel, the model panel, and within those panels are tools. So we can click on the wall tool or the window tool or the stair tool. Some of these tools, which are also referred to as buttons, are just a single button. You click on it and it starts the tool. This wall option here is a little different. It's called a split button. If we click the top part, it's going to start the most basic wall command that's used most often. But there are a few other variations related to the wall tool, and we can access those by clicking the bottom part of the button. By clicking this down arrow, we can see that there are other wall types like a structural wall and a wall by face, and then there's walls, sweeps, and reveals. Whenever we see something grayed out, we know that that tool is currently not available based on the view that we're in or the current mode that we're in. If we don't want to select any of those tools, we just hit escape and make that close. Also related to panels are these little down arrows that you see next to the name occasionally. So room and area has a down arrow, and if we click on this, this means that there's an extended panel option. So we see some additional tools related to rooms and areas. I can hit escape or just move my cursor away from that to make that go away. So as we change the tabs and show different tools, we can see how the quick access toolbar above can be convenient because all those tools are available all the time, no matter what tab is current. So here, if we wanted to draw a wall, we'd have to go back to the Architecture tab to be able to select the wall tool. Whereas on the View tab, we can select the Section tool from the View tab or directly from the Quick Access toolbar, no matter what tab is current. I always have access to the Quick Access toolbar. One thing that we can do if there's a tool that we use often, like the wall tool for example, we could right click on it and select Add to Quick Access toolbar. That would give us access to that wall tool quickly at all times. Below the ribbon is the Options bar. This changes based on what tool you have running or what element you have selected in the model. So I'm going to select the wall command. This isn't commentary on creating a wall or how to create a wall, but just pointing out that when the wall command is active, you can see how the options bar is contextual in the sense that it shows options related to drawing a wall. We also see that the ribbon has changed slightly as well. The Modify tab has been appended to have some place wall options. So in this case, it's showing us some different shapes of a wall that we can draw in a plan view. If I were to just simply draw a wall quickly and then hit escape 2 times to cancel that, we notice that the Modify tab now reverts back to its basic layout. If I select a wall, we see a similar Modify/walls option show up, and now we have some different options related to a wall that's already been drawn versus a wall that we are currently drawing. So again, hitting escape will cancel a command that we're in, or also unselect something such as this wall that we have selected right now. We can also notice that every tab starts with the Modify button. So if we switch between these different tabs, we see this Modify button's always at the beginning of the list. By clicking the Modify button, that also deselects or cancels any command. It puts us in a selection mode or the ability to start a new command. It should be pointed out that the Modify button is distinctly different from the Modify tab. Try not to get those two confused. The Modify tab has tools on it to modify the geometry in the model, whereas the Modify button is used to cancel the current command and clear the current selection so that you can select new things. One more thing that we'll look at across the top here before we move on is these 2 little buttons at the end of the tabs. If we click this bigger one, it's going to toggle the state of the ribbon between 3, well technically 4 different options. We can have it completely collapsed as we see here. If we click one of these tabs, the entire ribbon shows up. If we move our cursor away from it, it automatically goes away. This is intended to give the user more screen space if needed. However, if you have a larger monitor, you typically don't need to do this. Also, it's recommended that you leave it in the fully open state as you see here so that the screen matches the images that you'll see in the book. It should also be pointed out that these videos are being created using the all-in-one version of Revit called Autodesk Revit, whereas Revit Architecture would not see the Systems tab and Revit MEP would not see the Structure tab. But for the most part, the program is identical other than those additional tabs being visible in this situation. So I just wanted to point that out so you're aware of that. Now we'll move on to these two panels on the side of the screen. We have the Properties panel at the top by default and the Project Browser in the lower left by default. These can be moved around. This title bar here can be dragged over to the other side of the screen if you want to have more area for each of these depending on the size of your screen. You can also change the position, so those can be dragged around. If you accidentally close these, you also need to know how to open them. The Project Browser and the Properties palette both can be turned on or off from the View tab and the User Interface drop-down. So you can see the Project Browser and then the Properties palette option here. So I'll hit Escape to cancel that. So the Properties palette lists information about the current view if nothing is selected in the model, or it lists properties about the element selected. So right now nothing's selected and we see information about the view scale for this current view. We see things about the detail level, and if we scroll down we'll see things about phasing. At the top of the Properties palette we have something called the Type Selector, and this is a pivotal point within the Revit program. It relates to selecting what kind of element we're about to draw. So if we happen to be in the Wall command, we see all the various wall types available that are currently in this project. If we're in the Window command, we'd see window types. If we are placing text, we'd see text types from this drop-down list. We also notice that the information in the Properties palette has changed to be related to the element we are about to draw. I'm going to hit Escape so we don't draw any more walls at the moment. If I select a wall, again, that's already been drawn, we notice that the Properties palette changes again. All the properties are similar to the properties when you're creating a wall. And then we have the ability, again, related to this pivotal point called the Type Selector, to be able to swap a wall out, one with a different one, without having to delete a wall and redraw it. We're able to just turn this wall from a simple 8-inch wall into this more complex exterior wall. And hit Escape. Now we'll move on to the Project Browser. So this is somewhat analogous to folders and then files on your hard drive, and maybe relative to a traditional CAD system if you're familiar with that. A project for Revit, however, is a single file on your computer, and this Project Browser is how you access the different views that are created of that model. So you have this 3D model, and you're going to have various horizontal slices through the building that are floor plans and ceiling plans. And then you're going to have these various vertical slices which make up exterior and interior elevations and sections. And all those different slices and then schedules of that information can be accessed from the Project Browser. If we collapse this down to just the basic 7 categories, we can see there are views, legends, schedules, sheets, families, groups, and Revit links. So you might have another entire Revit model being linked into your current model. But we also have things like content. So the families are content such as doors and windows. So that's the Project Browser. We also have across the bottom of the screen what's called the View Control Bar. This is similar to the settings that you'll see up here in the Properties palette when nothing's selected. However, you see a lot more options up here. So down at the bottom of the screen, for a specific view, we have basically quick access to some often used view control options. Across the very bottom of the screen, we have the status bar. The status bar will list information about what Revit expects you to do. So again, I went into the wall command, and you notice in the lower left corner of the status bar it says click to enter wall start point. So that way we can go ahead and know what Revit wants us to do. So I click, and then I see enter wall endpoint now. Spacebar flips orientation. So it's telling me what it expects me to do, and then it's also giving me some tips on how to draw things. So I'm going to hit escape a couple times to cancel that. To the right on the status bar, we have access to a feature called work sharing and design options. We'll specifically look at design options. However, the work sets is just covered in a video. And then at the end, we have the ability to turn off press and drag, so that when we click to select a window, if we accidentally click over the top of something, that something doesn't start moving. Finally, we'll just mention the main screen here then, which is the main drawing window or the canvas. This is where all the work is done. Sometimes you're looking at a view that's a floor plan like we're looking at now. The highlighted bold view name is the view that we're currently in. If we double click on a different view over here in the project browser, we've switched to that new view. We can notice that the project title bar, it says we're in south elevation. And then we can see the level datums and this wall that we drew in elevation. We can close this view by clicking the X in the upper right. We can also navigate this view by spinning the wheel on our mouse. So if we put our cursor in the area that we want to zoom in on, we can spin the wheel, and that area under our cursor does not go off the screen. So you can see those elevation tags, which are what these 4 things are on the screen. Those all disappeared off the screen. If I wanted this elevation tag to remain on the screen, I'd put my cursor by it when I started spinning my wheel. I spin my wheel the other way to zoom out. If I press down on the wheel on the mouse, which is a button, I can pan around. So if you happen to be zoomed in really far on this wall, you can press your wheel button and start panning. So I press down and then let go, and then move my cursor back over, press down and let go. We can also double click the wheel button to zoom extents to quickly get back out and see everything in the model. We also have a couple of zoom features over here. Let me just zoom in real quick. If we click this down arrow, we see that there's zoom region. Notice that was a split button, so clicking the top part of the button would have done this top default command, which is zoom region or zoom a window that you select. We also have the ability to zoom previous. So if I click that, that zooms me out to whatever my previous view state was. So that's a quick look at the Revit user interface. You're going to want to take some time to make sure you understand the terms that are used to describe the user interface, the quick access toolbar, the application menu, the ribbon, the options bar, the properties palette, the project browser, the view control bar, and the status bar. Those are all terms that will be used regularly throughout the textbook, so understanding what those are will help you be more efficient as you work through the textbook and learn the program.